So this is a pretty interesting video. It's probably the last one I'll make before we really get like full or pretty much full access to Fallout 76. The beta comes out tomorrow. If you guys are looking for somebody to watch, I'm going to be doing that, so you can subscribe. I will be live streaming probably almost the entire 4 hours. But either way, as far as actual info on Fallout 76 goes, we have like a hogposh of it today, a mix match of different things. And the first one is actually very, very important for those of you who are planning on playing Fallout 76's beta tomorrow on Xbox One. If you preloaded the beta, make sure you actually launched the app itself. The beta download was roughly, I think, 47 gigabytes, but after launching the app, there's actually another 40 or so gigabyte download that you will have in the form of an update. There's going to definitely be people out there who didn't know about this and then go to launch the beta for the first time around the start time and realize, uh-oh, they have another 40 gigabytes to download. So yeah, if you are on Xbox One, make sure you've downloaded the beta and you actually launch it to get that update to begin installing and downloading. Outside of that, we actually got another tweet yesterday from Bethesda showing off one of the new factions. Ironically, this tweet came out like 20 minutes after I finished my video on the factions of Fallout 76. If you missed that, you can click on the little card. But either way, this time it shows off the Enclave. The tweet itself reads, "Just before the bombs fell, US leadership relocated to a remote oil rig off the coast of San Francisco. The Enclave's mission to reestablish governmental control of America from key locations like a secret bunker hidden somewhere deep in Appalachia." So that's cool and all. It's just basically saying that certain members of the Enclave were in West Virginia in the Greenbrier bunker, as many of us did suspect. The reason I'm highlighting this though is there's a number of interesting takeaways from this image. First and foremost, you could see what looks like a totally new and custom armor. And I personally think it looks really cool, like almost an improved version of the combat armor. But even beyond that, it's actually kind of subtle. You can notice there is a camo or paint job on this armor that's going to be a pretty fundamental aspect of this game since it's where microtransactions will be centered. But this also looks like it was taken from within the Greenbrier bunker, or the White Springs bunker as it's known in-game. This is the first shot we've seen of this, and I imagine the first shot we'll see of this for a while. I actually went to this location in-game, and it's heavily guarded. It doesn't seem like somewhere you'll be able to get on the earlier parts of the game. But outside of that, we have some general news and observations about Fallout 76's beta, as it now is just a day away. One thing that I think a lot of people should keep in mind going into this is you should expect a better build with this beta. Something that was reported with the stress test I didn't really cover a ton of at the time because a lot of these people are breaking their NDAs, was that there was noticeable improvements in the stress test build compared to the Greenbrier build that I personally played at the Fallout 76 event in West Virginia. There were a ton of posts on Reddit actually reporting various bugs, but also reporting some of the improvements. One big one was, if you actually watch some of the Greenbrier footage, my own included, when you enter into a trade with somebody, you'd get like a big lag spike, or the game would kind of freeze for a second, and then you'd be in the trading screen. In the stress test build, you actually had to press and hold Y to enter into the screen, and that whole bugginess was gone. In addition, apparently the FPS was quite noticeably better in the stress test build compared to the Greenbrier one. I know that's something a lot of people were concerned about, so I'm hoping that it'll be even further improved for the beta build. Perhaps we'll actually get a solid 30 FPS this time around. There was actually proximity voice chat in the build. That's something we didn't have at the Greenbrier. I'm kind of happy we didn't have it at the Greenbrier. It seems like it might have taken away from the game a little bit. And actually, what it seems like it was one of the biggest changes was in the difficulty. You couldn't just run around and take down enemies super quick anymore, but rather you would get punished much harder in this game for going into higher level zones when you were a low level. But either way, my point with this is come tomorrow, hopefully we'll see an even further improved build. It seems like Bethesda is definitely fixing and improving this game as they go right now, and it has without a doubt shown. Granted, it's still a beta, so there's probably still a lot to fix. Apparently the FPS wasn't perfect, and I'm going to assume tomorrow it won't be perfect either. But I'm still hopeful, and by the time we actually get it on PC proper, hopefully we'll have a pretty polished build of the game. In addition, a serious point of confusion for a lot of people seems to be the actual times of the beta. Basically, Fallout 76's beta is going to be from 4 to 8 hours per day. The first day is going to be from 7 p.m. Eastern Time to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. Bethesda says they're using the rest of that time to actually fix things and improve the game. The part people are confused about is these times are going to change for different time zones. With this first build, it definitely seems like it's favoring Americans, but on the second day, maybe it'll be super favorable towards Europeans, and so on and so forth. We have quite a few weeks of beta, so the times are going to change each and every day. They'll probably post them on Twitter the preceding day. In addition, for those of you actually getting into the beta tomorrow that do want a little bit of structure or maybe a guide to help you along the way, IGN actually just posted an interactive map of Fallout 76. It has a lot of the major locations. Obviously, there's certain spoilers with this if you're like super elite about that kind of stuff, but it's kind of interesting to look at just in general, but also if you're going into the beta and want to find some cool stuff in your 4 hours, this is probably going to be a helpful tool for you to use. And just as sort of a side, because that's the bulk of the news, there's a few other things I do want to cover, but they're more outliers. People are asking for just some general tips on the beta. A few things I would say is definitely try and work together with like a group of others. In the beta, of course, you'll be able to play with others, some of your friends, or even just randoms on the server. But having other people with you makes it a lot easier taking down certain enemies and actually clearing through or even getting to some of those higher level areas. I would progress the main quest until you get to Flatwoods because you get like a big experience and just item bump at that point. But outside of that, I think you could just kind of run off and explore. One thing that I found to be particularly useful was claiming certain workshops. For the early parts of the game, people don't really know how those work, and if you claim the right one, you could get a free production of like fusion cores or junk or a variety of other items. I would exploit other people's ignorance and actually try and take advantage of some of those very special locations. A number of these are actually labeled on that IGN interactive map, so you could try and plan out where you want to go. And just in general, it seems like the fastest way to level up was taking down a lot of enemies very quickly. At least that's based off what I saw at the Greenbrier event. Outside of that, one other thing I do want to highlight, because it seemed really interesting, was from a new video posted by Grizz Gaming. I talked about him on this channel in the past, but either way, in this video you could see as he walks out of a certain region, something pops up on screen saying the verdant season in the forest has ended. This seemingly indicating seasons in Fallout 76. That's pretty freaking notable because that could be a really cool and interesting mechanic. One way in which this could actually be pretty cool, but also something none of us knew about, is all of the server times are linked. So nighttime on one server corresponded with nighttime on another server. The playtests thus far have been at most 4 hours, so people just haven't had enough time to progress through some of the other seasons. Of course, if this actually is a feature of the game, the question does arise, why wasn't it in the marketing? It seems like a pretty big thing that Bethesda would show off. But it's kind of in a similar light to some of the other features coming with this game. We also know there are visible moving weather types. You could actually see the weather moving from one location to another. I feel like seasons are only a few steps away from that. Maybe I'm reading way too deeply into this little speech blurb that pops up on screen, but either way, I think it could be something very, very interesting. And then finally, something else that apparently has been creating a lot of confusion. Basically, if you play through the Xbox One stress test, you were supposed to be an Xbox One insider. There's a follow-up post on the insider program that said in order to get access to Fallout 76's beta, you do need to have pre-ordered the Tricentennial edition of the game. I'm not sure why this was posted on there. It seems like more than anything else, it is just a mess up by Xbox or whoever created that post. In reality, to get access to Fallout 76's beta, you just have to have pre-ordered the game. I think some people actually pre-ordered it, used their beta code, and canceled their pre-order. Yeah, you don't need one of these special editions. The regular edition of the game is good enough. Before we end things off though, I do want to share today's psychology fun fact of the day, and that's going to be on cognitive dissonance, or really a study looking at cognitive dissonance, one of the original ones. I don't know what it is about cognitive dissonance, but it is a concept in psychology that I probably struggled with more than anything else. Like, I'm normally a pretty good psychology student. I think things like I'll read it over, be like, all right, yeah, I kind of get that at face value. I feel like I understand what's going on there. With cognitive dissonance, I've read about it online, seen like armchair psychologists prescribe people with it, but then also learned about it in class in like an academic setting, and I truly struggle with understanding it so much for some reason. It was actually the first time in a psych class where I had to look up one of those YouTube videos and like the textbook and those materials weren't enough for me to learn that. Either way, here's my attempt at making myself understand it maybe a wee bit better. Cognitive dissonance is when you have a competing attitude, belief, or behavior. So let's say you think I should eat healthy, but then you actually go out and eat some chips that are unhealthy. Your brain is motivated to reduce the dissonance, basically the conflict between those two competing behaviors or the competing attitude and behavior. So you're going to do something to try and downplay that conflict. There are several routes we take to do this. One such one is, oh, you could say chips actually aren't that unhealthy. Or you could say, I don't actually care about eating healthy that much. It's just something I thought about one day. The fundamental idea being that we want to hold our attitudes and our behaviors in harmony so they are in sync. And when they aren't in sync, we're going to work to actually get them in sync. This typically leading to maladaptive behavior or biases in our thinking. So one of the original studies actually showing this was done by Festinger, a very famous social psychologist and just psychologist in general, and was conducted in 1959. Basically, in the study, participants had to carry out just a boring task. It was literally meant to be as boring as possible, but then after the fact, they took those same participants and they were actually meant to greet the up-and-coming group of participants that were going to do the task next. This group that just completed the task was split into two halves. One was given $1 and one was given $20. Both of them were asked to make the task sound as cool or as interesting as possible, like it wasn't as boring as it was in reality. What they found after the fact was people who were paid $1 to try and make this task sound interesting actually rated the task as being more interesting than people who were paid $20. So basically the argument is here, the people paid $1 didn't have enough justification to go against their belief. Their belief being that the task was boring because it was boring in reality. So what they did was actually make their beliefs match their behavior, the behavior of telling the second group that this task was fun. That actually changed their memory of the task. They thought what they did was more fun after the fact because they didn't have enough outside justification. Compared to the other group that was paid $20, these guys were like, all right, $20 is enough for me to lie. So they had no problem saying to the other group that the task was a ton of fun, but when they actually rated it later for just the experimenters, they rated it as completely boring. Hopefully that all made sense. Either way, as always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, but I hope to see you guys all next time. Later.